So I just go when you show me, right?
Yep.
All right. Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are off to an interesting start today. I'm not sure exactly where you're able to watch the show right now. We are going through what a lot of different conservative people are going through, trying to jump through all kind of hoops to get the show out there. And so bear with us. We got a great show for you today. We're going to talk about what's happening in the country literally as we speak. We're going to use a template of Pelosi is moving to impeach President Trump. But I want to kind of read this statement out for you so you can continue to watch the show. Due to the move by big tech to deplatform conservative free speech, we will be moving John Martin Talks to a new secure platform so that we can continue to broadcast. Please download Recoil TV app found in the link above the show, I guess it is, in the description. Right now, it's available on the Apple Store and Google Play Store. Who knows how long that'll last. In addition, you can go directly to johnmartintalks.tv. That's johnmartintalks.tv to see all episodes and continue watching my show. And we are determined to be your voice of freedom. So www.johnmartintalks.tv. All right, I want to thank our sponsors who are hanging in here with us. Big Daddy Unlimited, otherwise known as BDU. It's going to be a brave new world out there. It's going to take a lot of effort from you, the listeners. It's going to take a lot of courage for sponsors to back people like me or any conservative voice. So we're going to talk about that as the show progresses. But Big Daddy Unlimited is our sponsor. They're your Second Amendment headquarters. And let me tell you, do you need your Second Amendment headquarters now more than ever? Not only can you get guns and ammunition delivered directly to your door at factory direct pricing, but you get literally thousands of items, including tactical gear and swag, delivered directly to you. And I call them your Second Amendment headquarters because we need them to defend, and that is exactly what they are doing, our Second Amendment rights. My friend Big Daddy, Tony McKnight, told me we had a great interview with him and his lovely wife, Sherry with an E, on Friday. You should be able to see that across various Facebook networks and certainly on YouTube. Spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. And we're fighting hard to stay on the air. But they were in D.C. But Tony told me in a conversation I had with him last night that already Congress, under the leadership, if you want to call it that, of Nancy Pelosi, is pushing forward 12 bills, no less than 12 bills, that will directly impact your Second Amendment rights. So the war, so to speak, the battle for the First Amendment, which seems to be an afterthought right now, and the battle for your Second Amendment, let alone your inalienable constitutional rights, is in full bore. We also have a sponsor, patriotthreads.org, apparel with a purpose. Use promo code JMT and you get 20% off. We're on Recoil TV YouTube channel as well. And as I said at the top of the show, check out the app for Recoil in the Google and your App Store. We're just hanging in there the best we can. All right, let's get into the show here. House moves to force Trump out, vowing impeachment if Pence won't act. And this is a New York Times article. The House moved on two fronts on Sunday to try to force President Trump from office, escalating pressure on the Vice President, Mr. Pence, to strip him, talking about President Trump, of power, committing to quickly begin impeachment proceedings against him for inciting a mob that violently attacked the seat of American government. In other words, the breachment of the Capitol. So they're saying that Donald Trump incited violence. Is that really what he did? As I said earlier, I interviewed Tony and Sherry McKnight that were up in D.C. on January 6th, that were at the Trump rally, participated in a march. No, they did not go to the Capitol and breach that. They were worn out and they went the other way, but I know they wouldn't have gone in there anyway. But Donald Trump, one thing that I said on Friday in the interview with him, one term you won't hear that you heard all throughout this past year with the term mostly peaceful protest. You didn't hear that in association with anything that had to do with MAGA, Donald Trump, America First, wearing the red hat, any of that kind of stuff, because all you heard was the term insurrection. Insurrection. The reality is that the protest, if you want to call it that, in D.C. on January 6th was beyond mostly peaceful. Yes, there were people that unfortunately died in the Capitol, and our hearts go out to them, to the police officers, everything else. Donald Trump himself has ordered the flags to be flown at half-staff in honor of the police officers that died. Donald Trump did not, and I've gone back and looked at his speech. I would encourage you to do so as well. He did not tell people to go violently breach the Capitol. I think that clearly there were some instigators in that. I'm not absolving anyone who went in there, including Trump supporters. And I've talked to quite a few people, and I've gotten mixed reactions to it. I think the vast majority of American people, and certainly the Trump supporters that I know personally, some that were up there, were appalled by the breachment of the Capitol. But there's also a mob mentality that goes into these types of things, and it is extremely unfortunate. But I do not believe it is fair to say that Donald Trump incited a riot. I don't think, you don't have to like him, but I think a fair assessment, and it's very difficult to get that right now, would not include that he incited violence. In a letter to colleagues, Speaker Nancy Pelosi of California said the House would move forward on Monday with a resolution calling Vice President Mike Pence and the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment. Basically, that's the one that says that the president is bat crazy and needs to be removed from office. And rest the powers of the presidency. In other words, they want Mike Pence to knock Donald Trump out of office. No one really expects that to happen, and there's probably not enough time for either. She called on Mr. Pence to respond within 24 hours, which I guess would be Tuesday, I guess today, Monday, and indicated she expected a Tuesday vote on the resolution. Well, there's not enough time, flat out. Now, even if you are for impeaching Donald Trump for the second time, the only president that would have ever happened to, there's not enough time to actually do this or to invoke the 25th Amendment. There's not enough time for either of these. What is the purpose? Well, it's several-fold. First of all, they want to demoralize President Trump. They want to force him to resign in shame and everything else. I don't expect that to happen. They're also trying to demoralize you, the American people that supported Donald Trump. The almost 75 million. You had 83 million Twitter followers. Of course, Twitter now has banned him. We're going to talk about social media more in just a moment. But if you look at it, and let's just say, for instance, that 4 million, I'm just going to use, I have no reason to say this other than basically just making an example. Let's say that Donald Trump got 75 million votes, which he did right at that threshold. Let's say that 5 million of those people decided, hey, I'm done with Donald Trump. I don't expect that to happen. I'm just giving you an example. That would still leave 70 million people. Remember, 83% of Republicans polled just last week thought that this election was suspect. You got to be careful what you say these days. I never thought really that George Carlin would be a prophet. I miss that guy. But remember when he had a routine about the words that have been banned? It's amazing the words and statements and questions you're not allowed to ask right now. It's just unbelievable. But they're trying to demoralize you from ever supporting Donald Trump. That is the purpose. They want Donald Trump to be punished. They want people who supported him, that work for him, to be punished. And they want you, no matter what, to be afraid. Be very afraid. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I mean, I still have my Trump sign up in my yard right to this day, and I don't plan on taking it down anytime soon, certainly not till after the inauguration. But the thought crossed my mind, does this make me a target? Because I'm not really worried about myself. Don't misunderstand me. I don't want to get harmed in any way, shape, or form. But I'm very concerned about my family, about my little dog, that runs out in the yard. So will we become people that are MAGA hat people? Are we going to become pariahs, so to speak, and targets? I'm sure we already are. I know I've been the target of trolling by some of my own family, so to speak, and friends. And I talked a little bit about that last week. You can still see our podcast of the show, by the way, by going to John Martin Talks YouTube channel. Check it out. I don't know about Facebook. As I say, the police are upon us. We are trying to work that out. I know one thing, I'm not able to comment on anything if we ultimately get back on there. We're going to try to stay on America's Voice News Network. Download your free app to them on your iPhone or your Android while you still can. They're on Pluto Network, as well as 219 Dish Network, channel 219, and they're on all your streaming services, Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, and we are on that network. We're struggling to stay on there, not because of anything that they're doing, but because of roadblocks that are being put in our way. But we're determined not to abandon the public square and keep pushing on. And we need your help. We absolutely need your help. I guess I should go ahead and say this now. I'll probably say it again as the show progresses. One thing about it, if you're a true patriot, if you want to hear an alternative to CBS and even Fox News for that matter, let alone the other cable channels, you're going to have to support alternative media. You're just going to have to do it. Otherwise, you're just going to be spoon-fed or sometimes bucket-fed or shovel-fed a bunch of BS. Even Fox News is now coming into question about that. So whatever networks you're watching, America's Voice News is a good one. Follow our show anywhere you can and share it with others, and we're going to give you more avenues. We are determined, ladies and gentlemen, to stay on the air. We believe it is our patriotic duty to do so, but it is going to require effort and support from people like you out there if you want alternative to the mainstream media. It just is. As I tell you all the time, not everybody can be a fighter, but everyone can support those of us in the fight, and I am determined to stay in that very fight right now. This is what Nancy Pelosi said in the letter she wrote. In protecting our Constitution and our democracy, we will act with urgency because the president represents an imminent threat to both. An imminent threat to both. So Nancy Pelosi is now the defender of the United States Constitution. Wow. She went on to write, as the days go by, the horror of ongoing assault on our democracy perpetrated by this president is intensified, so this is the immediate need for action. Now let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know anybody that's really defending the actions of what happened in breaching the Capitol on January 6th. I don't know anybody that's doing that. There may be some. I certainly am not one of them. I am a law and order person. I do believe we have to man the political ramparts, or we're going to have to man the real ones again. And I am also believe that there is going to be a separation, if you will. I'm not calling for insurrection. I'm not calling for secession, but people are naturally going to start with their feet, with their pocketbook, whatever, separating themselves. We are not a unified country, and we're not going to be one anytime soon. And as Tucker Carlson, one of the few people I still watch on Fox, said just this past week, the more you try to clamp down on people by squelching their voices and everything else, the more you drive them underground, the more resistance there is going to be. And I think he's absolutely right about that. But what really troubles me about all of this is the selective outrage. Yes, the people that went into the Capitol were wrong for doing so. But this is nothing new. This is not something that is unique in any sense of the word. You remember just during the Kavanaugh hearings, the pro-abortionists occupied a section of the Capitol, basically took over the Senate office buildings, and they were hailed as heroes. heroes. Remember about a decade ago now in Wisconsin, in this great state of Wisconsin, when Governor Walker was still up there, that mainly led by the teachers union, but they occupied the capital of Wisconsin for like 3 days. 3 days. I'm not condoning any actions. I'm just stating fact. For 3 days, and did over $7 million worth of damage to that capital in the process. How about what happened with Occupy Wall Street? They occupied areas of New York, several blocks, where there were rapes, other sexual assaults, robberies, multiple crimes committed, and they even plotted to blow up a bridge, and very little, if anything, actually happened to them. How about what we've seen over the past year? And again, I don't believe I have to say this, but I'm going to say it. This does not justify what happened in D.C. on January 6th at the Capitol. That is not what I'm trying to do here. I'm simply pointing out to you that there is selective outrage, because what happened over the past year, not only did we see cities burned, but we saw courthouses blown up, torched. We saw portions of American cities literally taken over. Remember, in Seattle, they took over about 9 blocks of Seattle for like a month, and actually 2 people were murdered in there during that time, and basically nothing happened to them. So if you're talking about insurrection, then let's talk about insurrection. To me, all of those examples I just gave you are insurrection. They simply are. And our cities are being shut down literally as we speak. So my problem is with the selective outrage, not condoning anything. But it says here, this next little paragraph, far from capitulating, Mr. Trump made plans to proceed as if the last 5 earth-shattering days, this is according to the New York Times, had simply not happened at all. But momentum in Washington was shifting decisively against him. Earth-shattering. Now, to somebody like me, it probably is a bit earth-shattering. I got to tell you, I've been talking to a lot of people. I've been, I've been to several events over the past, since January 6th. Not too many people are actually feeling earth-shattered. I'm not saying they should. I wish they were. I'll be honest with you. I wish they were earth-shattering events. I wish people in this country would wake up on both sides, get truly awakened, and see what's happening. Maybe then we could actually unify. You know, the unifying document is the U.S. Constitution. I'm not saying that people on the right have an exclusive right to it, but the people on the left are absolutely tearing it to shreds and ignoring it and trying to overturn bits and pieces of it, if not the whole dadgum thing. We used to have a basis of unity. Now we don't. And the left is determined, and some Republicans now are determined, that you will not know what's in the Constitution. Look at what's happening right now. When we had the revolution, the places where people would meet would be churches, bars, possibly restaurants, although they were to the same, freedom of assembly, those kind of things. All of that is banned now in many, many parts of the country. You can't go to church. You can't go to the local pub. You can't assemble in any way, especially if you're a person that says the word patriot. You can't assemble with an American flag raised proudly, or you're called a super spreader and that kind of thing. So what is happening right now? I wish it was earth-shattering, but most people are just going along, getting along with their day. And that is sad. I wish people were more aroused by it. There are a handful of people who are causing trouble, but what I'm talking about is a great awakening of the American soul, so to speak. I don't see it right now, and we need it to happen. More than 210 of the 222 Democrats in the House, nearly a majority, had already signed an impeachment resolution by Sunday afternoon. Wow, what a shocker that the Democrats are trying to impeach Donald Trump when he's only roughly got about a week left in his presidency. Is that a shocker? It shouldn't be a shocker to anyone, considering they were trying to impeach the dude before he ever even got inaugurated. So really and truly, what else is new? registering support for a measure that asserted that Mr. Trump would remain a threat to national security. This is what their impeachment articles are going to say. Democracy and the Constitution. If he was not removed in the final 10 days of his term, a second Republican Senator, Patrick Toomey of Pennsylvania, said he should resign immediately, joining Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Well, let me tell you, Mr. Toomey and Miss Murkowski, that sounds like a really good idea to me. Adios to you. Why don't you lead by example? You want President Trump to resign. Why don't you lead by example and resign immediately? You can't make the president resign, but you could resign right now. I don't think you'd be missed at all. I just don't. But what we got to do, ladies and gentlemen, I keep telling you this, I'm not advocating for any violence whatsoever. I can explain some aspects of it. I'm not condoning it. But what we have to do, ladies and gentlemen, we have to get truly awake in this country. And those of you who are, we need to educate, motivate, and activate people. Educate them, motivate them, and activate people. And in cases like people like Mr. Toomey and Miss Murkowski, we need to eliminate them. No, I'm not saying kill them. That's not what I'm talking about. Vote their behinds out. The next time we have a chance to primary them in a Republican primary, we need to vote them out. As I've been telling you, I do believe that we need to take the Republican Party over. Now, I hear people talking about a third party. Trump should do this. Trump should do that. You know, Donald Trump is free to do whatever he wants. But here's the thing problem I have with a third party. My main goal right now politically, one is just to stay alive, so to speak. But my main goal politically is to stop the progressive takeover of this country. By the progressive, I mean the Democrats. They run the party. I'm not talking about every Democratic voter. But understand this, your party has been totally, 100% taken over by progressive. Mr. Biden, God help us, looks like he's going to become president. He said himself that if elected, he would be the most progressive president in history, and I take him at his word. So my main goal is to stop, at least slow down, the progressive takeover of this country. So when it comes to a third party, I simply have one question. How does forming a third party help me achieve my goal? In other words, how does forming a third party stop the progressives from continuing to take over the country? I can't make a case that it could. I'm not saying the Republicans can even do it, but I can make a case that if we took over the Republican Party, primaried about 99% of these rats out of office, these swamp dwellers, and put good patriotic people, I'm not necessarily saying Trump supporters, that'd be a good place to start though, in office, we could slow them down and maybe stop them. That's one reason why, by the way, they had to get rid of Donald Trump. I'm not saying he was perfect. I'm not saying he didn't make some mistakes. But the reason why Donald Trump looks like he's not going to retain his office is because the swamp rats, the establishment in both parties, never wanted Donald Trump in the first place. And the reason they hate him so much is nothing he said or even did other than the fact that he's actually been successful in trying to drain the swamp. That is why they have to get rid of him at all costs. With few Democrats hopeful Mr. Pence would act, Representative James Clyburn, that's the guy who made Joe Biden president, I guess, of South Carolina, the party's number 3, said the House could vote to impeach Mr. Trump by Wednesday, 1 week before Inauguration Day. Lawmakers were put on notice to return to Washington, and their leaders consulted with the Federal Air Marshal Service and police on how to safely move them back into the Capitol that was, this is the New York Times words, ransacked in a shocking security failure less than a week ago. Was our Capitol really ransacked? I mean, I saw some images. If it was ransacked, it was ransacked long before the MAGA people got there. And I'm not condoning anything, man. I just believe that they're over-dramatizing what happened. But Mr. Clyburn said on Fox News Sunday, now, let me just, before we go any further, let me talk a little bit about Fox News and the rest of this social media. And people are talking about Donald Trump forming a network. a new network. Well, there's a lot of challenge to that, a lot of money. I'm not opposed to Mr. Trump forming a network. Matter of fact, I support it. Understand this, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we're determined to stay in the public square. We're going to fight every way we can. Go to johnmartintalks.tv and click on that so you know that you can watch our show at any time. But make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, the First Amendment is under assault. If you're not awakened to that, then you need to understand that it is absolutely. The Second Amendment is under assault. I told you that according to my sources, 12 bills have already been put in position to be passed in the House of Representatives, taking away your Second Amendment rights. President Trump warned us about that. Support those of us in the fight. You've got to seek us out. You've got to be determined to find our show and other shows like this. Help us to be successful. As I say, not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can support those in the fight. And we're determined to stay and show you how to do just that. But getting back to what Mr. Clyburn said, he said, if we are the people's house, I guess talking about the House of Representatives, let's do the people's work and let's vote to impeach this president. The Senate will decide later what to do with that and impeachment. Well, let me tell you, I can tell you what I would do with that. I would do something like this right here. I'd turn it into what it absolutely deserves to be, toilet paper, because may go into short supply when we become totally socialist again. But I don't expect the Republicans to actually fight this much. There'll be a few. I got an article here I might get into if we have time. Josh Hawley of Missouri is becoming, he led kind of the challenge to the Electoral College issue, and he is becoming the pariah of Washington. They're piling up on him, to a certain extent, Ted Cruz. But I'm telling you right now, these Republicans, see, I expect this from the Democrats. I do. But these Republicans are cowards. It's unbelievable how many of them are running for the hills, trying to say, I didn't know him, basically denying him like they did Jesus. And I'm not saying Donald Trump is Jesus, but people who were like, all about Trump are denying that they ever even met the man. But they're cowards. How should these people be rewarded? How should these cowards be rewarded? Very simple. Educate, motivate, activate, and when necessary, eliminate them by voting them out of office. Did you see? I saw where somebody said, for the 100th time. Did you see where Colin Powell, I don't even know why this is headlines, came out and said, I can no longer be a Republican. Yeah, we've known that for over a decade now, sir, that you are no longer a Republican. Whoop-de-dad-gum-do. Don't let the door hit you in the behind, because you ain't been a Republican. If you ever were one, you hadn't been one in over a decade. But it made headlines that he said that, man. Mr. Clyburn argued in favor, listen to this right here. Mr. Clyburn argued in favor of delaying the start of the Senate trial for several months to allow President-elect Joseph R. Biden Jr., God help us, to take office without the cloud of an all-consuming impeachment drama. They keep talking about unity. I keep hearing the word unity. I heard Biden say it again yesterday, talking about how, we need to, rebuild and unify this country. How are you going to do that? By impeaching President Trump again. How? How does that unify? What message does that say? Think about this. A lot of Trump supporters, and I'm not justifying any kind of violence, but I do understand the anger. I do understand the resentment. We have not, those of us like myself, have not had our grievances addressed. And I heard somebody say, well, they had 61 court cases. Yeah, but no evidence was allowed to be presented. And the main one I keep coming to, we could hammer out every one of those, but the main one I keep coming to is the Texas case, where the Texas Attorney General was suing the results in 4 battleground states. There were others that could have qualified for that, and had like 20 some odd states, including the great state of Florida, join in on that. Essentially what that case was saying, and I think it's really clear, is that the votes that were cast in those states that went outside the state legislative parameters, in other words, what the state legislature sets, because the Constitution is very, very clear on this. We have basically 50 state elections, not one big national election, but the states themselves are responsible for the election laws in their state. But this is where the Constitution chimes in, that only the state legislators have the authority to make and change election laws, not governors, not secretary of states, not Supreme Courts. And in the case of all of those that were challenged, it was clear that that the changes made in the name of the pandemic were actually done outside of the legislative process and thus unconstitutional. The Supreme Court refused to even hear the evidence, even though they were clearly under the Constitution, the court that was supposed to arbitrate or decide challenges between states, which is going to happen even more on various things, and I talked about that. But the fact that the Supreme Court would not take up the case and hear the evidence means that our grievances, if we believe that there were irregularities, I won't say fraud, because fraud is one of those banned words. Irregularities, might be banned as well. I'm not sure. I may be getting myself in trouble. But that some of us out here thought there were irregularities, and that case did not even legitimately get heard. It puts us in a place, well, what can we do? Because I can tell you right now, I believe the vast majority of people that supported Donald Trump, if they felt like that the courts took their concerns under serious consideration, saw the evidence, which is clear because most of these cases didn't actually see any evidence, didn't let any evidence be presented. And they came out and said, okay, there's been an investigation, there's been a trial all the way up to the Supreme Court, and we just don't see enough to overturn this election. I for one would be extremely disappointed in that, but I believe I could accept it. As it is right now, it's very difficult to accept what has happened. And I think that, above all, is what is just driving people crazy. So how are we going to unify, Mr. Biden? And how does impeaching Donald Trump, all that does is galvanize people that are pro-Trump even more so. But here's what Mr. Clyburn went on to say. Let's give President-elect Biden 100 days he needs to get his agenda off and running. So what Clyburn is proposing is to impeach him like today or tomorrow or by Wednesday, I suppose, in the House of Representatives, but let the Senate wait on actually trying him. The guy's going to be out of office. Mr. Clyburn, influential on Mr. Biden, said in another interview on CNN. Let me tell you, I'll tell you what, Mr. Clyburn, in the spirit of unity, I will make a pledge. I will give President, God help us if that happens, Joe Biden, the same chance that you gave President Trump, Mr. Jimmy Clyburn. I'll give him exactly the same chance that you gave Donald Trump. It reminds me of a quick story. I was running for county commissioner one time, and I got beat. And then about 2 years later, this gentleman that I knew pretty well, and he was running for local city commission in Gainesville, came up to me at a basketball game and says, hey, I really need your support. Now, I knew for a fact he supported the other guy, which is certainly his right. I didn't really have an issue with that. But I told him, I said, I tell you what, I'm going to go home, because I already knew the answer, but I'm going to go home and look at my financial records, my donors, and whatever you donated to my campaign, sir, I guarantee you I will double it. And he kind of looked at me and just walked away because he knew he was full of crap, which is what Clyburn is. The uncertainty underscored how little precedent those seeking to contain the president had to guide them. No president has been impeached in the final days of his term or with the prospect of trial after he leaves office, and certainly not just days after lawmakers themselves are attacked. See, here's the thing. I've used this term extraordinary. I'm not talking about extraordinary. I'm talking about extraordinary. Everything that Donald Trump did was supposed to be extraordinary, outside the mainstream. And some of that I'm glad he did. But the way Donald Trump has been treated ever since he started his campaign, let alone actually became president, has been extraordinary. They have fought Donald Trump from day one. And now they're running for the hills and running for the cover, especially these spineless Republicans, man. But listen to this. If you're wondering why they're doing it, this next paragraph, let me check my time. We're doing good on time. This next paragraph sums up exactly why they are talking about impeaching Donald Trump or the 25th Amendment or whatever. 2/3 majority is needed to convict and remove a president in the Senate. But if he were found guilty, a simple majority of the Senate could then bar Mr. Trump from holding office in the future. And that's what this is all about. And that might actually happen because the Republicans and the Democrats are unified in one thing. They are two things, actually. They're scared to death of Donald Trump. And you know who they fear? There's one person out there that the left, the mainstream media, the never-Trumpers, which are basically almost the entire Republican establishment now, fear more than Donald Trump. You know who that is? It's you. It's you, the American people, you MAGA hat wearing sons of guns, you dregs of society, you basket full of deplorables that put Donald Trump in office. They are afraid of you, and they don't know how to handle you. If they knew that they wouldn't be trying to impeach Donald Trump, they would allow him to have his day in court, and they would allow us to stay on Facebook, Twitter, and everything else. But what the left is doing and the never-Trumpers is they are determined to squash us. And all it's going to do is galvanize our support behind President Trump and whatever he determines he wants to do, which he certainly has every right to ride off into the sunset. I don't know if you saw, but the PGA now has felt compelled to come out and announce that in 2022, I think, they have stripped a PGA event from one of Donald Trump's golf courses. Well, guess what, PGA? I have determined, as I am free to do, to strip my television set of watching any of your events. So that's what I plan to do. But they fear you. They fear you, MAGA hat wearing sons of guns. So really the question is not what they're going to do. They're going to do everything possible to damage President Trump, to prevent him from running for office, to prevent him from doing anything, and prevent anyone, if there is such a thing like Donald Trump, from ever rearing their head again. That's what they're trying to do. And so the question is not so much really what Donald Trump is going to do. The question is, what are you going to do? Are you going to take your toys and go home? Are you going to fight? And I'm not talking about insurrection. I'm talking about fighting by, not trying to make this all about me, but making sure that you find a way to watch our show. JohnMartinTalks.tv is one way to assure you can do this, because they're going to try to deplatform everybody. And we got to fight against that. You got to support those in the fight. If you don't want to be a fighter, support those of us in the fight. Mr. Biden has tried to keep a distance from the impeachment issue. He's trying to keep a distance from everything, right? He spoke privately Friday with Ms. Pelosi and Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, the top Senate Democrat. Oh, my God. But publicly has said that the decision rests with the Congress and that he intends to remain focused on the work of taking over the White House and the government's coronavirus response. Taking over the White House. Not serving in the White House, but taking it over. That's what the Democrats are going to do now. They're going to take over everything. They're going to take over your ability to even speak. He said, in 10 days, we move forward and rebuild together, Mr. Biden wrote on Twitter. Don't you mean refill, not rebuild, sir? I mean, a more accurate statement is refill the swamp. And think about this, getting back to President Trump's Twitter ban. Twitter can do whatever they want to, but we should take away their protections. And if they want to be just like every other Joe, they should be liable just like every other Joe. Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. They're saying that Donald Trump is a direct threat to the safety of this nation. Yet Twitter allows the Iran Ayatollah Khomeini, I think is his name, to have a Twitter. This is a guy who wakes up and says death to America, who literally chants to obliterate Israel off the map. And that tweet is still up from a couple years ago. that he put out there about literally just wiping and driving what he called the pigs or whatever to the sea, talking about Israel, to the sea. And that tweet is still up. I'm not necessarily advocating that it be taken down. I actually believe in free speech no matter what, and you can judge for yourself. But Twitter knocked off Donald Trump, but allows the Ayatollah, who literally on a daily basis says death to America, has threatened to assassinate Donald Trump. That is allowed to be up there. And as I said earlier, what about in your comments? Before, I've always told you to chime in on Facebook. I'm not even sure we can get back on there right now, but I know I cannot comment on any of your stuff. So if you have comments, questions, go to YouTube. We're still up on there. Spell it all the way out, John Martin Talks. Put in your comments, and I will respond to them as quickly as I can. Please, within your network of people, share how to watch our show, johnmartintalks.tv, and tell people if you follow, because I got a lot of people follow me on Facebook and everything, and it's frustrating that I can see your comments, but I can't react to them. It's very frustrating. It's not right, but I don't even know what I did. I don't even know what I did to get in Facebook jail. At the White House, Mr. Trump remained out of sight for a fourth straight day and made no public comment on either the assault on the Capitol. Is it an assault or insurrection, or I guess it's just bad, on a Capitol, or the brewing impeachment threat? The White House announced instead that he would travel on Tuesday to Alamo, Texas, to promote his border wall as part of a series of activities highlighting what he sees as the achievements of the last 4 years. Well, it sounds pretty reasonable to me that he would do that. To me, I don't see where that's unreasonable at all. But we're getting ready to have, under Joe Biden, God help us when he becomes president, an open border and a welfare state, which is a recipe for destruction. We need to wall more now than ever. So I appreciate what Donald Trump is trying to do. And think about this. They talk about, like, anything that has to do with Donald Trump is a super spreader. And Biden has come out and said, I got a maximum effort to control the pandemic. But how does that correspond with an open border? You talk about a super spreader. Long before the pandemic or plandemic, we were dealing with people coming across the border that had hepatitis and TB and everything else. So the border crossing has been a super spreader for a long time to come. Check my time. I got about 3 or 4 minutes left. Other than a video message, this is a big criticism of the president. Other than a video message he posted on Thursday night, Mr. Trump has said nothing about the attack since its conclusion and taken no responsibility for it, nor has he said anything publicly about the U.S. Capitol police officer killed by the mob. He's actually ordered the flags to be half-staff. Only after much criticism did he order flags lowered to half-staff at the White House and other federal facilities on Sunday in honor of the officer and others who were Capitol Police said died of off-duty a days after. So we had another one die off-duty and responded to the riot. Now, here's the thing about that. So they're saying Donald Trump is not responding or talking about it, and my response to that is just wow. So these are my words. So you deplatform him, you take off any way he has of communicating directly to the American people. If he made a statement, you would chop it to pieces, just like you're chopping to pieces the simple act of half-masting the flags. And can you imagine if he had a press conference where he wanted to address what happened and share his grieving or his grief for the police officers and others that lost their lives? Can you imagine what that press conference would be? It would be a circus. They would not allow the president to grieve for those fallen officers. They never have. But they criticize him for not speaking out when they won't let the man speak. It's crazy, man. The more images and stories removed from Wednesdays, the worse it gets, said Josh Holmes, a longtime advisor to Senator Mitch McConnell, another one that needs to go. The Republican leader wrote on Twitter, if you're not a white-hot rage over what happened by now, talking about in the Capitol, you're not paying attention. Who is not enraged? I haven't heard anybody condone what happened there. But we've been enraged for a while. The problem is you have selective outrage. And as I said, the clampdown. Listen to this next sentence here. It said, it was that fury driving Democrats forward, talking about that white hot rage, forward with a stunning speed. That's total BS. The only reason they're moving with stunning speed is because they have the opportunity to do so. It's just unbelievable. Let me look down here. Let me just kind of close with this right here. I'm going to read this part right here. None, talking about the Republicans joining in the impeachment, none were expected to join as co-sponsors in the House, they're talking about, before it was introduced on Monday, but the Democrats said multiple House Republicans were privately discussing voting for impeachment. Let me just tell you, and I think I can speak for a lot of Americans out here, if you want to vote to impeach President Trump, I don't care what party you're in. Go ahead and please, I'm begging you, vote your conscience. Do your duty and vote your conscience. That way, I can educate myself, I can motivate myself, and I can activate and motivate and educate others to eliminate you from office. So by all means, please vote your conscience. I would never tell you not to. Representative Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio, said on Fox News, the Democrats are going, and by the way, I hear the president may give him the Medal of Freedom. That would be great. The Democrats are going to try to remove the president from office just 7 days before he is set to leave anyway. I do not see how this unifies the country. And you're right, sir, but guess what? The Democrats and the Republicans, they have no desire to unify this country. As I told you the other day, you can still see our podcasts up on our Facebook pages and everywhere else. It's still up and there. You can work it. I can't right now. But they have no interest in unifying our country. And the Republicans, they're very ready to be the minority party. They got no problem being the minority party in Congress. They've been there before. Matter of fact, people like Mitch McConnell like being the minority party. You know why? Because they don't have to do anything. They can squawk and chirp and everything else and raise money and be responsible for nothing. Pelosi sent a letter. I can't read the whole thing. I pretty much run out of time. She sent this letter about impeachment. Well, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, Patriots sent a letter to Tyrant a long time ago, and it talked about the right to self-govern. It's called the Declaration of Independence, and that might be coming back into play, but I'm not advocating that. I want you to man the political ramparts, because if we don't, we're going to have to man the real ones again, or just give up. We can give up, lose our First Amendment, lose our Second Amendment, lose our Constitution. We can just give up. I am determined to fight on, and I tell you one more time, please support those of us in the fight. JohnMartinTalks.tv. Spread the word. Hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. You know, fight for your freedom. Fight to see our show. I'll pray for you. You pray for my family. And let's both pray for this country and the president right now that's still Donald J. Trump, because both of them deserve it. But like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.